Okay, so we've got yet another episode of Percy Jackson and the Olympians to take a look at. This time following on from the crew being sent by Ares to Las Vegas to meet with Hermes, who in turn is supposed to help them get to the underworld, but also meet up with Percy's dad Poseidon. And I was pretty hyped for this episode. It was the Lotus Casino, it's one of my favourite chapters from the original book. And so, when I clicked on the episode, my hype was at an all-time high. But, then I had to temper those expectations a little bit because I saw the runtime, the short runtime. Oh, Disney, why are you doing this kind of stuff to me? The episode runs for just under 30 minutes. That ain't it, son. That ain't it. But yeah, let's jump into We Take a Zebra to Vegas. Okay, and before we start, spoilers. So yeah, we start off with yet another ominous dream for Percy, which pretty much confirms to the audience what we've been talking about in every single dream sequence, that Percy is being set up as the true champion of Kronos. We've seen him try to tempt him in his dreams and warn him about danger, and now we see Kronos giving Luke a warning that he can easily be replaced if he messes up again. And I really do enjoy how they're setting all of this up, how they're setting up this big conspiracy on screen so the audience is in on it, but they're also intentionally misdirecting the casuals. But not in a way that feels cheap. We never seen Hades before on screen, so it makes sense that Percy would imagine someone he didn't like his old headmaster. So it's not a lie. Kronos isn't stealing Hades' appearance to try to trick us. It's not cheap, it's not an intentional bad misdirect, where there's no way to predict it. This makes sense, and so the reveal's gonna feel exciting, I think, for the casuals, as opposed to a bit forced. And I think what adds to it is that the characters think they have it all figured out, but there are small context clues there to reveal the truth. It's not Clarice who's the thief, and Ares isn't under Hades' influence, but Kronos's. They just think he is. It's kind of like the Snape Quirrell reveal. Once you know, you can see those more obvious clues in the text. But in that first run through, it's harder to notice. Honestly, I've been really enjoying these dreams he's been having. They're really helping to build up suspense, making you feel like the quest that they're on now isn't even scratching the surface of what's wrong with the world, and leaving the audience and the characters in the dark. And this in turn, it lets the crazy theorizing take hold, and allows for really good misdirects and really good twists. We then cut to the back of the truck, where we learn that they've almost arrived in Vegas. So, just from a brief Google Maps, it's been a good 22 hours they've been in that truck. My God, good luck to them. That would be exhausting and stinky, and probably hot and stuffy. No thanks. Ares is truly the greatest villain of the saga after this one. Anyway, they managed to get enough of a reflection from the sun to conjure up a rudimentary rainbow and pay some money to Iris, goddess of the rainbow, to make what seems to be pretty much a long-distance Skype call. Big-time fireplace vibes from Harry Potter. They call camp, and Luke picks up, which is kinda sus, but that's okay because the show actually does a good job of burying that little subplot by having them instantly reveal to him that Ares is covering up for the lightning thief, and thus it must have been Clarice. And since that character was so awful, so violent, so mean, to the casual fan this becomes a very believable revelation, especially after we've met Ares and he was a total asshole. Although I gotta say, I did enjoy the brief panic in Luke's face when they told him that they know who stole the bolt, and the interesting thing he said. He doesn't ask, "Oh, who stole it?" He asks, "How do you know?" The only reason you'd say, "Oh, how do you know?" would be because you in turn know who it is and you're trying to figure out how they got to that answer. But, when he clues together what they're actually trying to tell him, respect where it's due, he puts himself together and he easily deflects the blame. And then he just breezes past it completely, trying to distract them from that one line of inquiry by asking them about Ares and their adventures, before seemingly openly shipping Percy and Annabeth and teasing them about their closer dynamic. And honestly, real good stuff. I hope that some random Hollywood screenwriter was reading the books, found the weird Lucabeth stuff and said, "No, Rick, this is trash. This is a terrible idea. Stop. We're not doing it." Because yeah, I love Rick, I love his writing, but he really does make a lot, and I mean a lot, of truly garbage character choices. And that's one of them. Percy then goes on to ask Luke about Hermes and getting him to help when they arrive in Vegas, only for Annabeth to shut off the call and tell Percy that the two have a truly terrible relationship, and that Luke would only try to talk them out of getting his help, which in turn sets up the hook of drama for this particular episode, Hermes. But away from the serious stuff for a minute, because next up, we have a sequence which, well, it's actually really funny. You have Grover talking to Percy and Annabeth about how all these animals are being trafficked, and you have a grand and elegant plan to escape, only for it to cut to these dummies lingering on the road in peak traffic, just chilling after getting out of the truck. They're not trying to run away, just chilling. They've got the blessing, they're safe. I love dumb stuff like this. It feels like an old Family Guy joke, or maybe it's less violent than Family Guy would be. Maybe it's more like an old Simpsons joke, Simpsons vibes. I could easily see, say, Lisa playing the part of Grover in this scene, letting out all the animals, saying they have a perfect plan, and then it cuts away to lions trying to eat Hans Mole Man or something like that.
My name is Hans. Drinking has ruined my life. I'm 31 years old.
So yeah, they quickly get out of there, and the crew head over to the Lotus Casino, after a bit more banter between Percy and Annabeth. My goodness, the dynamic has well and truly shifted hard over the last couple of episodes. And it's been really well written, I think. And acted well too. Very believable. And before we go any further than this, we got to take a moment to talk about the Lotus Casino. I thought the design was cool, and it was cool to see the different people in different clothes from the different time periods and whatnot, but I did feel like it got a bit nerfed from what we saw. I liked that they had the kids realize what it was, because it is a famous Greek myth. They'd be so stupid not to realize. But since it's in the air, it should have affected them far more, and I think we should have seen more of these consequences. I especially missed the scene where Percy meets the dude from like the 70s, whilst he's playing the games, and then after talking to the guy who realizes, oh shit, I've been playing the games. And that's how they've lost all that time, as opposed to just walking around. But I don't know. It just didn't quite hit the same. And also on top of that, imagine showing that cool roller coaster going around the outside of the casino and then just not having them go on at once. Damn. They then make the very questionable decision to split up in the casino, with the demigods going together and Grover going off alone, with both groups going to try to find Hermes, with the promise that they'll meet up again in 20 minutes once they find him. And the main reason they do this? Well, I guess Annabeth thinks she's the only person that can adequately try to guilt Hermes into helping them, as she's the only one that really knows the story of Luke's mum. Man, this girl has zero fear. She talks trash to Ares, now thinks she can emotionally manipulate a god. Goodness. Also, I found it interesting that they told the story of Luke's mum. It makes more sense to explain this whilst he's a more sympathetic character, and it enhances the episode and the interactions. I really like how they're doing more foreshadowing and references to things coming in the future of the show. In the book, we didn't really get that luxury, as Rick was writing as he goes along, which meant that a lot of things did feel sudden and feel telegraphed, and they appeared right when he needed them. But being able to set up these sort of things early is only going to make the show and the story even better. Mark my words. After all, this means you get to have that payoff. You get to build up towards things, and that's what we have here. This is the building block. But yeah, we learn his mum was a seer, and that she went crazy, and that Luke blames Hermes for this. Pretty vague, but it sets up the mystery, and it sets up character motivations, leaving room for us to learn more about these two as the show progresses. And meanwhile, we get one of the sadder subplots of the episode, and the show in general, as we see that yet another of Grover's satyr relatives, although in this instance I think it's more of a family friend / mentor, has been completely destroyed by this search for Pan. And honestly, I found this whole sequence where it's like Grover's talking to a dementia patient very depressing, especially with the added caveat of them all being so devoted to this god, to the point that it has destroyed their lives, all because they love Pan, and they're desperate to find him so he can protect the wilds again. They face monsters and awful things, and all of them die, literally every single one, ending up being turned to stone or losing their minds in the Lotus Casino. It's really tragic. And I know that Pan's dying and whatnot, which, okay. Side note, when I read the book, I did think that the search for Pan was going to empower Grover as the next god of the wilds. Maybe that's a bit out of left field, but that's what I thought it was building to. He was so obsessed. We find Pan dying, and then he's fading. I thought, I guess this is what the whole search was about. Finding somebody worthy who had lived in this new version of the wilds and so wouldn't fade, and had adapted more to the coming of civilization and how that's affected the natural world in a way that Pan never could. Instead, the dude just dies, and hardly anybody actually believes Grover. Bit of an anticlimax there. Yeah, I know that Grover becomes the Lord of the Wild, and he does get some powers from Pan, but I kind of thought, he's going to become a straight up god. That's what I expected. Maybe it wouldn't work, but I think it would be fun. Oh well. Also, it's doubly sad that this guy got so close. Like Augustus, I mean. Pretty sure Pan's in the Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. Is that how you say it? Carlsbad? And considering that Pan went into hiding like thousands of years ago when they lived in Greece, he could literally have been anywhere on the planet. And so in that regard, Las Vegas is not that far away. Dude got close. I gotta say, it's a big time shame that he's cursed to live eternally in this casino with no recollection of his life beyond fragments. Like, seriously, this guy has one of the worst fates. Worst in the history of the franchise. At least some people die and they get an afterlife. He is just permanent dementia. No thanks. Hopefully this guy gets saved one day. Who knows? Anyway, Grover also loses his mind over the course of this sequence, but at least they manage to save him later on. We then get a look at Percy and Annabeth for one last conversation before we move on to Hermes and all the juicy stuff. We basically have Percy confide in her about his dreams, and the two of them come to the wrong conclusion that Hades is masterminding a war, and that this is only the beginning. Oh man, it's going to be satisfying when Hades reveals the truth that they've all been bamboozled and he's actually not so bad. I mean, by the standards of what we're dealing with. I mean, Kronos is actually the worst. And I do think they're going to pull it off quite well because the writing, I think, has been good to this point, at least in regards to twists. So I hope it blows the casuals' minds. After all, that'll drive up engagement, make it more likely to be renewed long term, fingers crossed. But yeah, they get it all wrong. And fair enough, the dude is supposed to be locked up and not be able to send spirit dreams to his grandson. And great-grandson if you count Luke, I guess. Is he his great-grandfather? I think so. And then we finally meet Hermes, the latest of our Olympian deadbeats, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Man, there was a whole lot of salt around his casting when news first broke, but I actually think he did a really good job here. He wasn't too over the top. He was nice and subdued with this air of superiority, this arrogance, like he's always one step ahead of these foolish demigods, which, to be fair, he is. And he tries to blow them off to get them to play a couple games with him instead, until Annabeth mentions Luke, and we get our first real, oh shit, godly moment, where one of the gods just shows how far above anybody they really are. He straight up teleports them away to talk in a private room. And then we get to some of the more interesting storytelling in the episode. So the way in which Hermes acts in this scene, all downtrodden, upset, a bit resentful, it's made very clear to me that Luke was his Percy, his beloved child, his favourite kid. Imagine being one of the other kids that he has, just chilling in the cabin. Like this whole discussion where he talks about how he broke the rules and actually tried to be there for his kid, it sounds great until you think about how he likely didn't do that for any of Luke's brothers and sisters. Deadbeat, but yeah, well acted. Because it does make you feel sorry for this dude, even though logically, he ain't all that. Annabeth then tries to guilt his ass good and proper, saying that if he helps them, then maybe Luke's going to be happy and try to walk down the road of forgiveness, which that idea does make me laugh because on one hand, she is right. Maybe Luke would want Hermes to help them get to the underworld because he needs them to be there for his plan to work. Pretty sure the magic shoes are supposed to dump Percy into Tartarus, right? Is it Tartarus or is it Tartarus? Who cares? Honestly, who cares, right? But on the other hand, considering that the idea behind Hermes getting them to the underworld is to uncover the true identity of the Lightning Thief and stop the God War, this would also be something that Luke does not want. You know, I just thought it was a little bit amusing. Might not be to you, but it was to me. Hermes then goes on to tell them that he actually went against warnings to stay away from Luke. That's how much he loved them. That's how much he wanted to help them. But in the end, they just kept hurting each other, which he says that Percy and Annabeth should be able to relate to, and he shows Percy a glimpse of his past, with Percy sitting in the back of a car. I'm very curious as to what this scene is. Is it book relevant? Because I literally can't recall it. If it is in the book, sound off, tell me what it is. And since Sally's the only parent that he knows, I'm guessing it has to relate to that, right? She seemed a bit short with him in the pool flashback, and I did find it a bit strange that a little boy had to calm his own mother down and get her to breathe. You know, that doesn't seem healthy. So maybe they are going to alter things, make their relationship a little bit less sunshine and rainbows, especially since Percy always getting expelled would have been very, very stressful. I don't know, I guess we'll see. Annabeth then storms out, and I like that you can see her take out her invisibility how she walks away so she can pickpocket Hermes. Like, I didn't notice that on the first watch. And so when you look again closer the next time around, yeah, you see it. There it is, a great little bit of attention to detail there. Like, they could have just had her walk off screen, you never see it, and you would have still believed it, but I just liked that. It was fun. We then learned from Hermes that it was Poseidon that tried to convince him not to interact with Luke, saying that even though it hurts to see them struggle, as he learned watching Percy, that that's part of being a parent. Well, yeah, seeing them struggle and being there to comfort them, not seeing them struggle and never ever speaking to them and not letting them know you exist. That ain't it, Chief. That ain't it. Oh, they're such deadbeats. A lot of them. For now, though, I gotta say that Hermes does seem to be among the better ones, at least as far as parenting goes. Because I gotta say, it does seem like the only reason Poseidon's even bothering with Percy at all is because of this crisis. Because if there wasn't a crisis, and Percy had simply come to camp with no stolen lightning bolt, no quest, I don't see him choosing to speak with him. Would he have even acknowledged him, claimed him? Maybe there's a bit of truth to Ares' words about Percy having lots of siblings who Poseidon eventually tired of. I mean, they aren't pulling punches with some of the gods, and they're adding a lot of nuance to each of them, so I wouldn't expect Poseidon to be the Poseidon we know from the book, where he's just Mr. Chill. Something bad is going to happen here. Mark my words. Hermes then reveals that it's too late anyway because they've been in the casino for days, so they actually missed the deadline. And this was a big change, but I actually kind of like it because it means that Percy doesn't actually need to go through with the rest of the quest. He can go back to camp. He can be, well, mostly safe. But it makes his decision feel more heroic because he doesn't need to risk his life. But it makes him more sympathetic as a hero because, yeah, there is a good chance that Hades is going to destroy him. But he has to try for the sake of everybody who's going to get hurt if he doesn't. Really good change, unexpectedly. I really like it. And also, massive asshole move from Hermes to just sabotage them like this. Like, what was his purpose there? That's just mean. Especially since he helps them out anyway at the end. Just, come on, dude, be better. Annabeth then reveals that she stole his keys, and they go to retrieve Grover. First with an amusing encounter with poor Augustus, and then by pulling Grover away from his VR headset, which he claims was leading him to Pan. Also, did anybody find Nico and Bianca in this whole sequence? Because of any character or storyline to tease, I feel like that's the one you want to tease. More than just a background reference or a slight voice acting line, which apparently exists, but I couldn't find it. Even when somebody gave me the timestamp, I was still all, really? But yeah, they're such a big part, or at least Nico is such a big part of the future of the franchise. I feel like they would have set him up here. Also, I love the acting for Grover here with his extreme enthusiasm. Even with total amnesia, he was just hyped to go on an adventure. Made me laugh. Also, I found it so cute that even when the satyrs lose their mind and purpose in the Lotus Hotel, they still hold Pan in their heart. Their devotion is very touching. It's honestly adorable. Of all the gods in the books, I did get the idea that it seems like Pan was probably the most benevolent to his followers. So it's very cute that this devotion lingers on. And here, we hit what was by far the funniest part of the episode, where Percy, Annabeth and Grover take Hermes' taxi, which we learn Hermes knew Annabeth stole the keys to. Luckily, they did not just get smited by this guy for stealing his car. Whew. I guess with his sphere of influence, it was very amusing for him to get robbed. And also part of him probably wanted to help Luke, but didn't want to admit to these little demigods that he was wrong. We'll see. They then hop in the car, and Percy's driving, and I gotta say, the way that this was shot, the scripting, the action, it was done so well. And it was truly, truly funny. The panic, the stress of having to drive in one of those annoying, narrow parking garages, the super delayed honk of the horn when the guy doesn't even slow down for them in the parking lot, the bunny hopping, and then best of all, his fear when he notices that narrow exit combined with the curve. This scene felt very true to life. And then, of course, they have this cute moment where they're looking at one another, they're smiling, and then, oopsie, scraping up the car. Oh, this moment broke me. It broke me good. So funny. And then it just descends into chaos. They crash through the barrier, they almost get nailed by a truck as they exit, and then they're teleported by the car, just in time, to Santa Monica Beach, where Grover gets his memory back. Everybody marvels at the power of love and friendship having protected Annabeth and Percy's minds from breaking in the casino, and then Percy's off to meet his dad, who isn't there because the deadline's passed. Too late, kid, tough luck, have to marshal my armies to fight Zeus. And theoretically, right, wouldn't this be a bit of a win for Poseidon? If you're going to beat Zeus in a fight, best if he doesn't have the Master Bolt, but Zeus does have his trident, right? Shouldn't he just whoop his ass good and proper? Take control, become King Olympian? Hell yeah, get him, Poseidon, get him! But yeah, moving on, I'll be honest, don't know what it is about them, but I hate these underwater sequences. Just looks way off to me. Not a big fan. Visually, it turns me off. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I don't like it. Anyway, his dad's attendant thing, she tells him that he doesn't need to fulfill the quest, but he says, nah, and he gets his epic hero moment, and you love to see it. And this in turn gets Seaweed Lady hyped up, because why wouldn't it? First Poseidon demigod in years and years and years, and what do you know? He's an absolute Chad, and he's only 12, and he gets given 4 pearls to help teleport him away, 3 for him and his friends, and 1 for his mum. So clearly, they wanted Poseidon to not look like a dickhead, only giving 3 like he does in the book, especially since they know for a fact in the show that she is still alive in this version. So yeah, The penny has not dropped yet for Poseidon to be slightly bad at all, but something tells me it's going to. Maybe not this season because I don't think we've got enough time. They just don't have enough time to devote to Percy's breakdown, realizing his dad also sucks. But I do think we're going to get something because there's so much more depth and nuance to each god we've seen. They'll give him some too. But of course, that's where it ends, with the preview showing that we're getting a whole lot of stuff next episode. The underworld and the Ares fight. I'm very worried about the pacing there, to be honest, but we'll see how it goes. Overall, a very good episode. Lots more changes than I expected, but I think most of them do serve the narrative quite well. I had a lot of fun at least. But my god, they're too short, damn it. It is going to hurt the pacing at the end, mark my words. And so yeah, that's the end of the video, and I would like to remind you that these were just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it, hate it, you agree with my thoughts, maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.